Welcome back. Well, one of the films making its international premiere at TIFF this year is called The Pigeon Tunnel. It's a documentary on the storied life and career of former British spy David Cornwell, better known as his nom de plume, Jean le Carré. He's the author of classic espionage novels like Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy. And joining us for more on that is the documentary's director himself, Errol Morris, an Academy Award-winning filmmaker. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me here.
I think this is your 7th showing now here at TIFF, the first in 5 years. What's it like being back here in Toronto for this awesome festival showcasing your amazing work?
Still looks like Toronto.
Hasn't changed much?
Not as far as I can tell.
Yeah, well, listen, it's good to be back. It's good to have you back. And the Pigeon Tunnel is an amazing story of a guy who's had 2 very different but successful careers, both as a member of MI5 and 6 and then as a spy novelist. Why did you want to tell the story of David Cornwell?
Why not? It's an extraordinary story. Story about a very, very successful novelist and a spy who writes philosophically about what it means to spy for someone, to spy for a country against another country. It's a fascinating story.
Sitting, in the same room as him, I understand you were not face-to-face conducting the interviews. What was that like? How difficult was it to get answers from someone who's used to having a poker face as a spy?
It became a very, very interesting and enjoyable conversation. I mean, I like talking to him. I'm losing part of what you gave me here.
Yeah, we need that.
I needed to know who I was talking to. Were you my friend across the fire? Who are you?
And if I can't answer that question?
Okay, I think we've got the earpiece sorted out now. Errol, I want to ask you about a question that I thought was really interesting that you posed, that we hear in the trailer, about why is betrayal such an important concept to you? What made you ask that question?
Not such an obscure question. When you're an agent, a spy, a double agent, you're taking on a role. You're posing as somebody who is not yourself. And it resonates with me. I used to be many, many years ago a private detective. When I first started making films, people didn't want to give me money to make movies, so I moonlit as a private detective. And I guess it's not so dissimilar. You're pretending to be somebody because you want to ask questions and to find the answers to those questions.
So in this film, Cornwell says that writing is a bit of self-discovery. Is filmmaking a bit of self-discovery for you then?
You betcha.
How so?
I don't think it's so dissimilar, because you're trying to figure out how the world works. And part of figuring out how the world works is figuring out how you work.
And so sitting across the room from this, prolific writer who very likely this is his final interview, and you capture these special moments for him that are now going to be a piece of his legacy. What were you trying to convey, Errol?
I don't think there was this idea of conveying this, that, or the other thing. The idea was to try to engage him and learn something about him. And I ended up liking him a great deal. He's extremely eloquent. I make movies to learn something. Why bother otherwise? And I learned a lot from this man. And I've learned a lot from reading his various books over the years as well.
More than 30 of those books. What are you hoping that audience members take away as they're sitting in the theater here at TIFF or watching it at home on Apple TV+? What do you want them to feel, Errol?
I want them to think about the issues in the film. I want them to think about personality, identity, betrayal, what it means to serve your country or to betray your country.
To know who I was talking to. Were you my friend?
All of those things.
Who are you?
I noticed that a couple of Cornwell's sons have producer credits in this film. Why was it important for you to include them in this?
Well, it's not my decision, I might add. The father gave the two sons the rights to make movies from his entire oeuvre. So they're part of the deal. They always were part of the deal from the very beginning.
You mentioned, Errol, that you learned a lot from Jean Le Carré. What was, I guess, the biggest thing you learned? What did you take away from this experience?
One thing that surprised me, we live in an era where it's very fashionable to say the truth is subjective. There isn't really no such thing as truth. Everybody has their own truth, their own variant of truth. But David Cornwell, very much like myself, believes in truth. Maybe we can't ever know it, but we know it's out there, and in principle, if we work hard enough and long enough, maybe we can discover something about it.
Gotta seek the truth. Errol Morris, the filmmaker, the director, the writer of The Pigeon Tunnel, thanks so much for being here on CP24. Your film premieres at TIFF as well as Apple TV Plus on October 20th. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me here.
And happy TIFF.